I didn't even realize it. Here we go. Today is going to be a great show, as always. So fasten your seatbelts. We are going to learn and grow with Dr. Drew Ramsey. So let's get ready to dance. It's mandatory, Dr. Drew. How do you want to call it? Dr. Drew? There you go. Dance. There you go. That's good for the brain, isn't it?
Dancing's good for the brain.
That's good for the brain.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who've just stumbled upon my show because you are driving and you're stuck in traffic, well, the purpose of the show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening friend, will feel empowered to live the life of your dreams and learn a new truth, which I think that is how we live the life of our dreams. We give up the need to be right about our beliefs. And so today, we're going to talk about the brain. This whole week has been about the brain. And so we are going to focus on depression, how food affects the brain. And for those of you who love winning books and love calling the show, you're going to want to put my number on, I kept seeing speed dial, but that doesn't exist anymore, on your list of favorites. So I would like for you to call, leave a message. Please remember to leave a message or text. I'm going to do the fifth caller or texter because we have a great book. Not only is it going to be good for you, but it's great to give as a gift as we enter the holidays. And so 407-373 5959 is that number that you will want to dial. 407-373-5959. So we have witnessed, I don't even have to ask you, I'm sure every one of us knows somebody who's been experiencing the devastation of memory loss, dementia, Alzheimer's. But do you ever wonder if there's anything that we can do? Well, if you listen to the Lillian McDermott radio show, you know that you can take your brain power back, your life back, your health back. There's so many things that we can do when we take 100% responsibility. This is about good news because we are not victims of our DNA. What we are we inherit our family recipes, the way they stress, all those things. But we're really lucky today because we're going to be focusing on the brain with psychiatrist Dr. Drew Ramsey. He has a book. Oh my God, this book is so wonderful. It's called Eat Complete, the 21 nutrients that fuel brain power, boost weight loss, and transform your health. What a great title. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful to Dr. Drew Ramsey because he is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Drew. Should I call you Dr. Drew or Dr. Ramsey? I mean, I don't know. What should I call you?
You could just call me Drew.
Drew. I love it. I love it when doctors come on the show and say, just call me Drew. Just call me my name. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Lillian McDermott radio show.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here with you. Great, beautiful morning we have. I'm very excited to talk to everybody about brain health and what to eat to maintain it.
Absolutely. So share a little bit about your background and how you discovered food as medicine.
Well, I'm calling you right now. It's just wondering if I can turn my camera and you can see this is I'm here on our farm in southern Indiana. So
wow, beautiful.
I'm a farm boy from Indiana, and then became a psychiatrist. Eventually made it up to Columbia University in New York City, where I did my training in psychiatry. And I got very interested in the fact we didn't talk to patients about food, in part because I was really interested about food in my own sort of personal health journey. Just at that point, I was eating a vegetarian diet. I was really interested in optimizing my performance, and I realized I wasn't engaging with my patients that way. And at the same time, psychiatric medications, which I prescribe to people when indicated, some of those cause some weight gain, and it felt like sometimes I would get people's symptoms better for why they came in to see me, but then they'd gain 10 or 20 pounds, and that doesn't really help anyone. So it just felt like a blind spot in terms of something that people can do, as you say, something that is in our control, that we can take control over. And I just saw a lot of myths, like it costs too much to eat well, or healthy food doesn't taste good, and just got really interested in nutrition and how we could apply it to clinical practice, because I'm mainly a clinician. I like seeing patients, and I like being a doc in that way. So that led to the happiness diet, and then 50 Shades of Kale, and then really after doing some books and being in it for a number of years, Eat Complete was really fun to work on, just to bring the information together in a very cohesive way.
Very nice. I love that. I love the fact that you are really focused on the brain. This is something that is happening right now, where we think that as we get older, we're bound to get dementia or depression or memory loss or anything like that. We think that that is a part of life. And you say?
I say you have a lot of control about that. I'm not going to say no, because in part, I just meet people in all kinds of different circumstances where people have done everything and they've gotten dementia. And so my feeling is the most important take home for people is that you have a tremendous amount of control.
Very good. And so we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Drew Ramsey when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Okay. So I am going to do something.
Like 127 acres.
100 recording pause. Okay. 127 acres. My goodness. And this is the farm you grew up with?
Yeah, I grew up here. Yep. Yeah, we moved here when I was 6, actually, from Long Island.
And where's your family? They live in the farm area?
We split our time between, my parents live here, but we split our time between Indiana and New York. So I actually just flew in from my clinic last night.
Very nice. Very nice. So it's beautiful, beautiful. And so you said that you were in the first segment that you were very interested in nutrition, but is that because you grew up in a farm?
I think it's because we've always grown a lot of our own food. And I think the other reason is just that as we began to understand more about the omega-3 fats, and a lot of interesting data came out about those towards the latter half of my training, that just kind of, we find these things where like trans fats, like we talk about them, but we sometimes don't talk about where they come from.
Okay.
And so I found that to be true with the omega-3 fats, that there's, and as you can see in Eat Complete, my mission kind of became like, how do we take these nutrients we all know we need more of, like magnesium and iron, and how do we help people eat those as opposed to
Here we go. So we're going to continue this conversation on the air. This is the part of the video that's kind of like, okay, what do we say off the air? What do we say on the air? But whatever we say, we can, people, I'll send people there to, okay, so let me tell you, I just finished taking my test.
Once again, here's Lillian.
I'm a food brain expert. Did you know that? Okay, welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we always learn from one another. And today's teacher is Dr. Drew Ramsey. Dr. Drew Ramsey is a psychiatrist who prescribes food as medicine, which is how it should be, right, Drew? I mean, isn't that what Hippocrates said many years ago? Let thy food be your medicine, medicine be thy food. How did
that was Hippocrates, the original doc. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just something that it's good common sense. We all understand that we are, a lot of us are challenged in what we're eating. And there's a lot of options that have been given to us or promoted to us that really aren't very healthy. And so food is an incredible medicine for people, and not just for all the nutrients, also because of what it does to your life. That the goal of the brain, if you think about what a brain does, a brain sorts information for us, but a brain also connects us and connects us to people. One of the first indications I get when people are in my office and I'm evaluating them for their mental health is I start thinking about their connection. Who's in this person's life? Who are they telling me about? Who are their allies? What's their community look like? And that's a brain function, because when our brain's not working, as we all know, we're more isolated. We aren't connected. We don't feel that wonderful vibration of being connected up with other humans and other people. And so food is a wonderful way to do that. Food is the web, and the food web is something that we're very intimately connected to. And engaging in that, I just find people really look at themselves and the world differently. So it's definitely the nutrients. Those are awesome, and helping people come up with lists of brain foods, helping people kind of build out the core set of foods that should make up their diet is something we love doing in the Brain Food Clinic in New York City, where the food fairy, Samantha, and I tend to our patients and get them get them doing what we do, which is we have a clinical model just really about small goals. So if you're listening today, right, I would say, like, what's your food goal today? Like, you gonna eat some lentils? You gonna make sure and get some seafood, because we know Americans are not eating enough seafood? Are you gonna eat better meat instead of that deli sandwich? Are you gonna get yourself some hummus and veggies, or you're gonna maybe make lunch and take it, right? What are you gonna do differently today? That's how change happens. It's just little small steps. And so
well, let's talk about that change. When you were going to medical school, you're pretty much taught to prescribe medication. So that is one of the ways. I mean, did they ever talk to you about nutrition as being medicine in
I
medical
would say
school?
so medical school is a lot more than prescribing meds. I would say that medical school is about, first of all, it's about understanding how to be a physician. I have a bunch of patients in medical school, right? And it's really interesting to watch how they transform. One of my favorites is a young man who's in a surgical subspecialty, and he said this wonderful line. Let's say he's in the middle of residency, working 100-hour weeks. He was operating all weekend long, and he said, I'm becoming something that is myself, but is different, something that I wasn't before. So that whole process of becoming a physician, certainly we prescribe meds, and we do that because there's great evidence for a lot of the meds. But we have to do more, because even with all of our new meds and new ways of thinking about patients, our country has just gotten sicker and sicker.
Let's talk about
Our
that.
obesity and diabetes rates are out of control. We have 65,000 opioid overdoses, which that is just a straight up brain problem. We had 40,000 people in America commit suicide. So we're not winning the fight in some way. And so that's where we understand that there has to be more than just thinking, you can meet somebody and in 6 minutes prescribe an antidepressant and they're going to get better. It's a very small percentage of people who get better like that. And the way that we get people better is really through a comprehensive notion of how do we help an individual move into a more gratifying life, and how can we help them battle things like depression and dementia on all fronts. And when you see stats like, gosh, eating a more sort of Mediterranean style diet, which just means for most Americans eating more plants and eating more fish, that reduces the risk of dementia by 40% in a really wonderful study by a Columbia University colleague. And so when you see that data, the issue is you got to start doing that in your 30s.
Yes.
You can't be losing your memory at 65 and think all of a sudden you're going to change it all around.
Yeah, because we're living longer, right? We're living longer. And if we lose our memory at 65, that's what is the quality? Because we are living longer.
Well, we're living longer, but also we're understanding that these illnesses begin to take root, not when we get the symptoms. This is something like dementia is the sequela of years and years and years of usually chronic inflammation. I mean, some genetic factors that we're starting to understand. So, but still, the bottom line is, I think a lot of us, when we wake up in the morning and we ask that question, are we really taking optimal care of ourselves? We're not. We're not sleeping good quality sleep. We're not putting down our devices. We're not eating the rainbow vegetables and the seafood. And so I think that's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to kind of partner together and change that.
Okay.
Because it doesn't, what we see in our clinic is it doesn't take a long time. We can really get someone radically shifting their diet and how they think about food, and getting them on the types of foods we talk about in Eat Complete very, very quickly.
And for those of you, my listening friend, you're listening to Dr. Drew Ramsey. He's a psychiatrist. On his website, I took his there's a test for your brain health. If you want to know if you're ignoring your body and the signs in your life that you are not well, but if you want to take a test, because many of us love doing things to prove one way or another, he has a test on his website. It's called drewramseymd.com. It's a test for your brain health. I took the test and it says, you're a brain food expert. Yay! So I'm excited about that. But here's the thing. For those of you who want to learn more, there is a book that we're giving away today. Fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959, and win a copy of Eat Complete. This is the 21 nutrients that fuel brain power, boost weight loss, and transform your health. And it will be a great gift as well as a gift for yourself, which is most important. Okay, so I would love for you to share, because you said in the first segment that even though you were interested in nutrition, your family grew your own food, and you pretty much grew up this way, it didn't make the connection until you had a patient that made you aware that her depression may be more than just not the pill not working for her or whatever.
Yeah, so it was early in my career where as I was speaking with the patient about their depression, and then I'd done what we're supposed to do. The patient, she was seeing me in psychotherapy. We're having good conversations. She was on a low dose of a medicine that had helped some of her symptoms, but she described her morning and it just had nothing good to eat in it. And I was seeing her in the early afternoon, and she was in a horrible mood and kind of really emotional and irritable and didn't know why. And it just kind of struck me as almost obvious, like, like, of course you're feeling this way. Right? Not only have you been struggling with depression, but you basically, had a low quality protein shake or, something that's not particularly good for you early in the morning. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, and then as I kind of just asked some basic questions, I realized there was like a lot of gold there. And talk to people about food, you instantly start to understand so much about them. And it felt almost like I got a new diagnostic tool in my office. If somebody comes in and says, oh, I eat like a 12-year-old boy, I know it's awful. You understand something about that individual right away, right? That they have an awareness, they're not caring for themselves, and they don't know why not. They don't know, maybe they do know why not, but they're not taking action. And so helping people enhance that motivation to really take action, I think that's one of my favorite acts as a clinician, that helping people create those small set of goals and take those first steps. That's how change happens.
Yes. And when my children were little, I belonged to a mom's co-op, and we also had a few dads as well. And we would work together to have a school, and we would help raise our children or teach our children. And then we would take a class. And I remember taking a class where they said that after the age of 7, that how many neurons are connected, that's it. After the age of 7, it doesn't happen anymore. Has that changed since then?
Yeah, no, that changed a lot. We heard the same thing in medical school. I finished medical school in the year 2000, and it was like, hey, all your other cells reproduce. Oops, except your brain cells, the most important ones. You just get, a couple 100 billion of those. Good luck. And we understand that isn't exactly the case. That we continue to grow new brain cells, not a ton of them, but you grow new brain cells. Your brain clearly makes new connections when we learn a new skill. That's why learning a language or learning to play a new instrument is good for the brain. Ask the brain to make new connections. And as I said in the last segment, your brain is your organ of connection, right? That's what the brain does for us. It connects us up to things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we understand there's now a neurohormone called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And that really regulates whether brain stem cells mature into new brain cells. When brain cells are stressed, it helps keep them alive and keep them in the fight. And it helps brain cells make new connections. And what's really cool is that lots and lots of therapies in mental health increase BDNF, but so does food. There are about 6 nutrients now that have very clear evidence that when you eat those, you promote the production of BDNF. And we think about that as putting your brain in brain grow mode.
Okay.
So really, eat complete and my e-course, Eat to Beat Depression, they revolve around this idea. If we eat with nutrient density, meaning trying to get the most nutrients per calorie as we can of the nutrients that are most implicated in brain health, what we're doing then is we're feeding the brain for the fewest calories possible.
Hmm.
And so we also know that those nutrients like magnesium or the flavonols in things like dark chocolate, um, that those nutrients and molecules promote BDNF, and more BDNF is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that really is the kind of biochemistry or the neuroscience underneath what is a very simple eating plan, right? Which is
Okay.
around eating good whole foods, preparing them simply. All the recipes in Eat Complete are really designed with the idea to get more plants on people's plates, more colors, more seafood, and really shift how people think about meat. And then to add in a few things that people don't think about, like fermented foods or nuts. Actually, nuts are one of the only foods that have been highly correlated to prevent severely low levels of BDNF. So when I'm packing a snack, or if you're listening this morning, you're packing some snacks, throw in some walnuts or pecans or almonds or cashews. Raw and unsalted is how I recommend them, and you've got basically the best snack in the world.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so we'll have this conversation about soaking your nuts later. But do you soak your nuts
So,
that are raw?
no, I mean, soaking nuts, the whole idea of soaking things is you tell the seed, hey, you should start to grow. And when the seed does that, when they sprout, you kind of mobilize some of the minerals. I tend to grab my nuts out of the bag and eat them by the handful. So I don't often soak them. Maybe
Okay.
I should, but I haven't. I think sometimes people get intimidated by joining us up in the food movement because there's so many like little tricks and rules, and I kind of feel, my experience of people is folks are eating pizza, burgers, and fries,
Uh-huh.
and let's get them eating almonds first before we have them making almond milk.
That sounds like a plan. And please remember, we have a book for you today. Be the fifth caller to leave a message. Don't just call. Fifth caller to leave a message and text. And fifth caller will win Eat Complete book for free. 407-373-5959. And we're going to continue our conversation. And we're going to start talking about the foods that are good for the brain when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Okay, so the formula that you've come up with, you talked about the 6 nutrients, but you have you're very similar to Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I don't know if you follow Dr. Fuhrman.
I know Joel a little bit. Yeah, he's
Yes.
I remember, I can't remember I met him at a book award, at the MS Society Awards, but I've definitely followed his work for a while.
Yes. So he's been a regular on the show for the last 2 years, and he talks about G bombs. And so when we come back from the break, I'd love to talk about, because the G is for greens, but you focus on kale. You love kale.
I do love kale.
But kale has had a bum rap lately. It's
Oh,
like
why
you
is
have
that?
to.
Why?
Yeah, well, some people say that you have to, blanch it, or you have to heat it. If you have it just raw, that it's not good for you. Again, all the rules that you're talking about soaking nuts.
Who are these people? Right before we can talk about this on air. Right before Kale Day, I got contacted by a magazine that was reporting that kale was toxic and had high levels of radioactive materials in it.
Yes, but
So
don't you think that that's from the pharmaceutical industry coming up, or the food industry coming
no,
up?
I
No,
don't. I don't think that's the food industry. I think that's a lot of people who are really unqualified to give people health advice, deciding they're part of the
you
wellness
think,
movement.
okay.
I mean, that to me just sort of, as you say, if people say, it's like, really, anybody with a degree or anybody who's like read a science study or anybody who knows that kale is a low oxalate green, which means that in its raw form you absorb more of its calcium than you do from milk.
Yes.
Those people, because like, so I get very frustrated at that, because I meet a lot of patients who have been through the wellness movement trail of tears, where they have been they have been given so much stuff and spent so much money and given so many vials of blood and haven't ever seen a qualified healthcare professional. And they have been miserable and suicidal for years and years, and no one's actually treated them with the evidence-based treatments that exist for depression. That makes me very mad when I see that, because it's a big waste of people's time and a big suffering. You could say the same by conventional medicine. There are lots of people who don't get better, and
Yeah.
but there's definitely a standard of evidence that we have that is important to consider. We don't have evidence about everything, but it's certainly important to consider.
Okay. So as you talk about the people that are depressed, sad, and anxious, yes, nutritional component is it, but how much of that is unwillingness or inability, not unwillingness, inability to deal with some issues that are in their life? Maybe,
So
yeah,
so I think it really depends on the
and they're
depression. I
sad
think
and
one of the things I think that we often do for patients who have depression is we kind of lump them together, where sometimes people get depressed for really good reasons. Sometimes people get depressed that there's no reason at all. There's just, it feels like a very biological depression. Things are great, and something changes.
Mhm.
But oftentimes there are really powerful emotional things that people haven't dealt with, and that I would say the majority of my time I spend seeing patients in psychotherapy. I think since Monday I saw something like 25 hours of psychotherapy patients, and so I definitely am a huge believer in that. I think also when you do a lot of that work, and you see patients every single week, you also get a real sense of what medications do, what some herbs and supplements can do, what are the limits of talk therapy. And so that's, I think, one of the benefits of speaking with people who do clinical work is, I see all these interventions, fail.
Mhm.
And when you're on the hook because you're somebody's doctor, like, that's not good enough. You can't fail, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
why I wouldn't say have a little bit of a skeptical air to me. Oh,
Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, that's so important that
I'll be right
we look at
here
it.
waiting for you.
Here we go. The music's real loud. Okay.
You
So
can text Lillian
we're gonna,
McDermott or
as you
leave her
can
a
see, did you
voicemail
read what I
at
wrote?
407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I am your host, Lillian McDermott, and it is my goal that we learn from each other, go through life with childlike wonder, and just learn and grow with everyone that is in front of you. Today's teacher is Dr. Drew Ramsey. And for those of you who want a free copy of this book, you know what? I think I have a $20 gift card from Nature's Son. So I might even throw in one of those. So if you are the 5th caller or texter, you will get not only the guide, the Eat Complete guide here, which is a wonderful, beautiful book with lots of beautiful recipes that will help give you all the nutrients for your brain, but you will also win a Nature's Son, Native Son. I'm sorry, I keep saying nature, but Native Son. So you can start your journey to eating healthy. It's a $20 gift card from Native Son. So I want to ask you to please go to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where we take 100% responsibility, the kind of responsibility that Dr. Drew Ramsey is talking about today. That, it's not just what's happening around you, it's what's going into you as well that we need to really take a look at without judgment, without a preconceived notion, just really seriously see how you are creating what's happening in your life. And so that's what we call 100% responsibility. No judgment, just awareness. And so please go to, I'm trying to create this movement of responsible people. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com. And while you're there, check out my sponsors. Check out, because if it weren't for them, the show would not happen. So please go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Like me on my social media. Check out all the YouTube videos. There's so many ways that we can stay connected and create a movement of saying, you know what, I am going to take my life back. Today, we're giving away a book called Eat Complete: the 21 nutrients that fuel brain power, boost weight loss, and transform your health. And be the fifth caller or texter at 407-373-5959. And I'm going to be throwing in a gift card, $20 gift card from Native Sun. Okay, so Dr. Drew, thank you so much for being on the Lillian McDermott radio show today. Now, in your book, you say 21 nutrients. And I know you love kale. So let's talk with Kale about kale first before we talk about the 21 nutrients.
Okay, well, kale has a lot of them, so it's a good food to start with.
Yes.
Well, kale has been near and dear to my heart, both because of my second book, 50 Shades of Kale.
Love the name of that book.
And then along with my co-author of that, Chef Jennifer Isola, we started National Kale Day 5 years ago. And so we've helped millions of kids in public schools try kale and eat kale. We helped organize the largest ever shipment of kale. Every commissary that is run by the Department of Defense in the United States celebrated National Kale Day last year. So why kale? Right, kale used to be under the salad bar at Pizza Hut. So kale popped for a few reasons. One is that it's so nutrient dense. And so as we're beginning to think about health and nutrition, and as there's getting to be more public awareness of that, people are looking for these superfoods. And what a superfood simply means is it's a food that has, again, lots of nutrient density, lots and lots of nutrients for not a lot of calories. So you think about a cup of kale has 33 calories and it's just loaded with nutrition, right? A cup of kale gets you 600% of your vitamin K for a whole day. Right, 200% of your vitamin A, it's 134% of your daily needed vitamin C, plus you get iron, you get folate, you get fiber, you get more absorbable calcium than you have in a glass of milk, and you get all these phytonutrients, what we call miracle molecules or cell signaling molecules, things like sulforaphane, which boosts your liver detox capacity, and so all of this you get for 33 calories.
Wow, that's pretty sexy.
And what I love about kale is, and one of the other reasons is that kale goes with, as we started to see the dietary tribes form. And it used to be like vegetarians and that's it, right? Vegetarians and meat eaters. And now, we have the Whole30, we have paleo, we have gluten-free folks. Well, what's nice is that kale fits on all of those menus. Yeah. And so what's been interesting to me, just, I'm mainly a physician, but getting a little bit more involved in media work, is how there's just been a tremendous kale backlash. Yes. This is a food that's just like, it's a plant, it's a leaf, all leafy greens are good for you. The idea that I began seeing headlines that kale was toxic, that kale poisoned the thyroid. I was doing a kale event. I had my shopping cart full of kale, which I'm sometimes in that position. And a woman it turned around and she sort of hissed at me, says, you don't absorb any nutrients from kale. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm thinking like, gosh, I've spent like hundreds of hours researching kale. Like I kind of probably know more about kale. I've grown 50 varieties of kale on my farm. I've made everything from cocktails to pesto to soup with kale. I make kale chips 5 different ways. Like,
Yeah. Don't you call it a kale-hito?
There's a kale-hito. I love kale-hito. So it just sort of struck me that when we have a good thing, there's a portion of the population wants to decide it's a bad thing. And so sometimes people struggle because kale makes them either a little gassy or kale tastes bitter to them. And again, if you're thinking about why kale is on my radar, 1, it's for nutrient density. 2, it's for culinary versatility. You drop kale in a salad, you drop kale on top of your soup, you add kale into your pasta sauce tonight. And you're adding in a tremendous amount of nutrition and health. It also helps shape your palate over time. That, to me, I really like the taste of kale. Not everyone does, but it's something that if you're used to highly processed foods, eating a lot of fast food, a lot of food from packages, the tastes of natural foods don't kind of sit right with you anymore, probably. Yes. And so reclaiming your palate is one of the things I talk about in Eat Complete, where there needs to be a shift for people in terms of what real food actually tastes like. And for a lot of folks, they haven't eaten much of that, and their system's been hijacked a little bit by all the food scientists who, make food for us that just tastes absolutely amazing to our brain, but is actually horrible for our brain. And so, but kale's a great place to start. And what we've done in Eat to Beat Depression and also in Eat Complete, it's really also talking about food categories, because some people don't like kale, and that's fine. They love Swiss chard. Hey, great, eat Swiss chard instead of kale. Some people, don't like wild salmon, but they are fine eating oysters.
So seafood is another one on your list.
I would say seafood is the number one food category for brain health that Americans are missing. Americans eat 14 pounds of seafood per year. The recommendation, actually, the FDA and EPA recently released a statement that pregnant women need to be eating 2 to 3 servings of fish a week. And all of you who've been pregnant or know pregnant folks, when you talk to pregnant women about fish, they're not eating it, and they're very concerned about it. When actually, if you look at the data, women who eat more fish, they have a much lower risk, 6 times lower risk of postpartum depression. Their kids have 9 verbal IQ points higher, and the data is just as clear, crystal clear. More omega-3 fats during pregnancy and early development is great for kids.
Yeah, but then you hear about the anti-fish, that don't eat fish because it has too much mercury, or don't eat fish because it has.
Again, we got this is a problem. I've gotten really frustrated with the wellness movement, because what seemed to happen to me is people have stopped paying attention to the data. The only person you should listen to probably about mercury is Dr. Joseph Hibbeln, and he's the head of nutritional neuroscience at NIMH. He's a wicked smart scientist and a great guy, and he is a servant of the public health of America. And last time I gave a talk about seafood, he got up and he asked me to promise I'd never use the word mercury again. Because if you look at the data very closely, and there's a lot of it, the actual problems with mercury that most women would experience on a low, moderate fish intake, there is no statistically significant finding. If you look at what happens when women don't eat fish, there's all kinds of statistical findings. And so there's a way that we like to find the boogeyman in food, right? that kale is toxic, that fish is mercury, that the oceans are poisoned. And I certainly appreciate that our food supply has radically changed. But when you look at what most Americans are eating, lots and lots and lots of conventionally produced low quality meat, lots and lots of vegetable oils, and lots of sugar. It seems strange to me that when we make recommendations for what the healthiest countries eat, what the healthiest cultures eat, what the longest lived people eat, they all eat seafood, right? Why then
that's a great point.
Why does it come down to mercury? Why do we then say, oh, mercury? It's like so, and so a lot of times what I'm finding is there's an echo chamber in wellness and medicine, just like we had in politics. And if you find yourself just reciting those kind of same lines that, mercury's toxic and kale's toxic, I would just ask all of you out there to pause. Really think, is that true?
Yes.
Did you really get that from a really reliable source? You just get that from somebody who, seems like a reliable source. Get that somebody, and so that's where I'm concerned.
And that is the confusion. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of confusion of what's good for you, what's not good for you. And so, what about farmed fish versus wild caught?
Yeah, so anything that's wild is better for you. Right?
Good. Wild
meats are better for you. Wild fish are better for you. One caveat might be lake and stream fish, that we've really poisoned our interior waterways. But, I tell people, go small fish. An anchovy has no mercury. Go bivalve, mussels, clams, and oysters. Best deal in the supermarket. Amazing for your brain health. Amazing nutrient density. Try to get seafood in your diet several times a week. That's it.
Very good. Simple enough. And we're going to continue our conversation. Please remember to dial 407-373-5959 to get a free copy of the book. We'll be right here waiting for you. Got a lot of people calling in for you. Boy, lots of calls. So people want this book. Yes. And so I'm not counting, but I think we've reached our max. But so I understand the concerns. I understand there's so much coming at us. And then we have the news, where we have the anchor just reading whatever is in front of them. And by the way, it's maybe sponsored by, someone who has to profit by sending that information out into the world. And we don't have time to do the research. That's why
I think that's a really problem in the wellness movement right now, is that the people with the biggest voices often are the people who are profiting off of big supplement companies.
Yes.
And I love how they love to bash big pharma, and they're big pharma. It's like a level of hypocrisy that just kind of infuriates me, where getting back to health is not a complicated thing.
So you would say that eating the food versus taking a pill. My registered service mark is you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. And it's not that I'm against pills, it's that I'm for doing everything possible to live the life to create the life that you want. And so the nutrients, so we talked about the kale. Now, what about spinach? Does spinach offer as much to the body as kale would?
I have decided I'm no longer in the business of comparing healthy vegetables to each other. So I've gone like 12 rounds with kale versus every green.
Yeah.
Swiss chard, collards, cauliflower, broccoli. They all come from the same family. Spinach doesn't, but all those are cruciferous vegetables. Are all good for.
Okay.
So my feeling is that if you're only eating kale, you're going to get bored. So that's where all the other lovely leafy greens.
That's part of the leafy greens. Okay, so we have one segment left, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, keep us honest with the time, okay? Okay, so
1 minute.
Okay, native son. 1 minute. Okay, so let's talk about all the other because I want to get to the chocolate, because that's going to be the fun part. So we've talked about kale or greens, seafood. The next one would be nuts. We already talked about nuts.
We could do rainbow vegetables. We could do fermented foods. We could do both of those quickly if you want to just kind of
Do you have fruits? Also
we have rainbows, and so fruits fall under rainbows.
Okay, fruits fall under rainbow. Okay. So fruits and vegetables. And nuts, we've briefly talked about it, but you don't soak your nuts, really?
No, I
don't. What I understand is that it has a protective coat when it's raw, and it releases an enzyme that is designed to kill a bug from eating it. It's a natural histamine. I don't know. It's a natural product that is released, and it kills the bug, and that's why bugs don't normally eat nuts.
Yeah, I mean, so all plants have that outer layer of when we talk about antioxidants.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where our conversations on and off the air are just as fun. And so I want to encourage you to, after the show, we post a YouTube video, and you'll get to see Dr. Drew Ramsey sharing his wisdom, and you get to have it for you, send it to people. Really, truly, like Dr. Ramsey said, we really need to inform ourselves and learn where the source is coming from. And I always say to you, don't believe me. Do the research yourself. I take 3 hours for every show I do. I take 3 hours to research my guest. Sometimes more. Sometimes I spend a week. And so by the time they come on the show, I've looked at most everything that they've done. Not everything, but most everything within my time and my capabilities. And so I'm excited to introduce you to Dr. Ramsey, because we're focusing on brain health today. I want to encourage you to go to drewramseymd.com. If you want to know how well you're doing, there is a test that you can take on his website to see how your brain function is doing, how healthy your brain is, and how good the habits. It's a great test, by the way. And so we talked about Dr. Ramsey. Thank you so much for being on the show today. We talked about kale. We talked about seafood. We briefly talked about nuts. Let's quickly go, because we're almost running out of time here. So let's talk about the rest of the the
Sure.
nutrients?
So these are the food categories for everybody listening that science tells us really make up the brain healthiest diet. And so you want to have more leafy greens, definitely more seafood, specifically wild seafood and the bivalves, more nuts. And the other thing we emphasize are rainbow vegetables or rainbow plants. So these are going to be fruits and vegetables that have a lot of colors to them. Deep greens and blues are the colors I choose, as James Taylor said. So that's good advice when it comes to food as well. Because all those colors represent the plant's defense molecules, and those defense molecules are things that our bodies use and have co-evolved with. So they signal to our cells to reduce inflammation and to stay healthy. Fermented foods is a food category that I talk more and more about as we've thought and understood more about how all of the bacteria in your gut, which is called your microbiome, that is a point of intervention and a real dictator of our health and our mental health. It says we never really thought that there's communication between your brain and your gut in the way that there is, but there's just tremendous crosstalk. And so by adding in what I call an Eat Complete, the good bugs, so these are fermented foods like yogurt or kefir or a coconut yogurt, but fermented products where the bacteria pre-digest the food, and they also make a couple of nutrients like vitamin K2 that we don't find other places. Other things that people add in, sauerkraut. If you've never made sauerkraut yourself, I highly recommend it. There's 2 ingredients, cabbage and salt. And it's really sort of shows you eating more if you eat bread, more sourdough, especially if you're worried about gluten and gluten sensitivity. An easy way to reduce your gluten intake is just start eating more sourdough breads, because the bacteria, if you double ferment a bread product, a flour, you actually could call it gluten-free. You eliminate the majority of the gluten by a double fermentation process. And so
sourdough is gluten-free? Is that what
it's
I'm hearing you say?
a double. No, I'm saying that a double. There's a scientific study looking at a double fermentation process that eliminates gluten. So most bread is single fermented, and they added a little flour. I wouldn't want anybody with celiac disease to run out and grab sourdough bread. But as we look at the truth about gluten, which has been vastly distorted, right? That most people have no problem with gluten. That's just the science, right? Only 1 to 2% of people have celiac, and only a few percentage, let's say 5 or 6, have actual gluten sensitivity. So when you look at the issue with gluten, it's mainly that people are eating way too many white carbs, and gluten kind of comes along with that. And so a lot of the benefit when people cut out gluten is they're just having to pay more attention to their diet and not eat garbage.
Yes.
Right. And so there's all kinds of health benefits of that have nothing to do with gluten, but because it was a gluten intervention, that's how it gets framed. So but sourdough is one of those, if you look at traditional diets, one of those things that helps you reduce exposure.
Okay, so let's continue on with that. And Brian, your mic is on. Brian, your mic is on. Okay, so let's continue on. We've got the fermented food, and let's continue with the nutrition, the 6 nutrients.
Okay, so in E-Complete, I go over 21 nutrients, and then in the E-Course, we cover about 6 to 8 nutrients. And my goal in educating people about nutrients is, one, to just dispel some of the myths and help people understand, like, what does magnesium actually do in your body? Why is it actually important for your brain? What do omega-3 fats do in your body? And then really to rapidly translate those nutrients into food. If you know iron is great for you and an important nutrient, that really doesn't help you pick pumpkin seeds today, or doesn't help you go out and eat clam chowder tonight, because clams are packed with not only vitamin B12 but lots of iron. And so what we're really in the business of is helping people find food, and for that to be your prescription, not you need more of these nutrients, because a lot of people, those nutrients are very abstract notions. I mean, I find a lot of very, very smart, very well educated patients that I evaluate, they don't know what protein is. They don't know where to find magnesium. And so that's why focusing on these food categories, which have the most nutrient density, and focusing on a core set of foods. If I look at what makes up our family's diet, a lot of lentils, a lot of leafy greens and kale, some eggs, grass-fed beef, lots of wild salmon and anchovies. There's a core set of probably 15 or 20 foods that really make up the majority of our diet. And it should be that way for most people, because there are a core set of foods that are just frankly healthier for you and your brain.
So beans are part of, go ahead. And
beans and greens full of magnesium. Beans, really, I think that's probably I wouldn't argue the only healthy part about vegetarian and vegan diets, but that messaging that we need more plant-based proteins. We eat beans and rice, I would say at least once a week for dinner.
Mhm.
Just an absolutely great meal. Beans and lentils, great source of protein. I'm probably a bigger fan of the lentils because it's just so much easier in the kitchen. But
Yes, it is. And
you know,
you can get raw beans. It's so inexpensive, and
oh,
for
so
that's a myth that it's so expensive to eat
yeah,
healthy.
that's the whole, like, brain. We people say, oh, it's cost too much. It's like a pound of organic small red beans, which by the way have more antioxidants than any other food. It's $2.20 per pound. And you
Yes.
soak them, and if you haven't soaked a pound of beans and tried to eat them, it takes a long time, like many days. It's a lot of beans. But
Okay.
beans are great. Beans and legumes are just a great category. Nuts and seeds. Those are just, again, as you go through, as you're looking at your grocery cart, right? And you look in there, are you seeing these foods? And if not, that's actually wonderful news for you, because it means that there's such a clear set of steps that you can take to really transform your health and your brain health. And
Yes.
so when I meet people and they eat badly and they're really kind of upset about it, I think this is awesome. This is a great opportunity, because if you come to me and you're eating perfectly and exercising every day and meditating, and you're really, really still struggling, there I'm almost nervous because my favorite interventions, I'm not sure how well they're going to work. But if you come
Yes.
to me and you're really, you're eating that beige diet, and you're not being mindful, and you're not moving your body, you're not kind of living with intention and love. Uh, I'm very hopeful, because I've seen those are very powerful medicines.
And you can help. Okay, so the last one that I want to talk about is dark chocolate.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about that one.
I'm about to go eat some of that. So
Yes.
dark chocolate, I like dark chocolate because, when you think about health food, a lot of times people get turned off, or they just, it's not pleasurable. And actually the biggest point as we recorded Eat to Beat Depression, this video-paced e-course, I realized that we kept talking about food joyfulness. This idea that what I really hope for people is that food brings them immense joy, that cooking is fun, that shopping is fun, that engaging with your food is just fills your life with joyfulness. And so dark chocolate is a great food because it's very nutrient dense. Dark chocolate starts as a seed. It's then fermented, which is quite interesting. And then it has a number of nutrients. Dark chocolate is quite high in iron. It's high in fiber. It has a
And
good
you're
amount of
talking about
magnesium.
chocolate that doesn't have sugar. This is the
Well,
natural cacao.
all chocolate. The only chocolate that doesn't have sugar, cacao nibs, and most people, that's pretty bitter. So
Uh-huh.
when you see that percentage, like 60%, 70%, the 70% is how much of it is chocolate, and the rest of that, if you subtract from 100, what's left is all sugar.
Oh,
So a 60% dark chocolate bar is better than a 40%. And so you want your chocolate dark, and it's has one of those nutrients that boosts BDNF. But it's one of those things, again, you can use as a flavoring and really enhance lots of foods.
well, Dr. Ramsey, I am so excited, and we're gonna continue this conversation. Thank you for being on the show today, and I am really excited for all our listeners to get a free copy, well, to get their own book. Thank you so much, and to you, my listening friend, please remember I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. Make it the best day ever. I forgot that. I was like, oh my son, I need some dark chocolate, Dr. Ramsey.